Hello and welcome back to this episode of One-on-One Sports. The MLS Playoffs are underway, and so far we've seen some pretty lopsided ties. After demolishing the San Jose Earthquakes 5-0, the Vancouver Whitecaps lost to the defending champs 2-0 on aggregate. The Seattle Sounders look primed to repeat, but is there a team out there that can challenge Clint Dempsey and company? Jenny, what do you think?
I don't think that's the right question here. I think the question to me is, can anybody take down the East, which was significantly better than the entire Western Conference the whole season?
And there's a reason, because you saw the top seed in the Western Conference go down to Houston.
Right, and I mean, we're talking about Toronto FC in the East, which is arguably the best MLS team ever assembled.
They are filthy.
And so,
as long as they can keep themselves on the field.
Right, as long as they're not sabotaging themselves. Hello, Josie Altidore, what are you doing?
And Jovinko.
Hey, he's getting old.
But Josie Altidore, I mean, at least Jovinko is yellow card accumulation. He'll be back. We don't know if Josie Altidore will be. He got a violent conduct red card.
What a moron.
It's just stupid. But what I also think is interesting with the West is just how I think there's so much more parity there, where you can have any of those teams knocking each other off. And I don't think your Houston Dynamo, unfortunately, are one of the strongest teams in the field there.
No, and you look at this Eastern Conference, I agree with you. It's really who can beat the East, because not only do you have this Toronto FC team, you have a Columbus Crew team who basically had their owner light a bonfire underneath them and give them every single bit of motivation just to annoy him and just to make him look like a fool.
Doing a pretty good job, too.
And if the Columbus Crew win this, we're talking about one of the best stories in sports. It's one of those ones that anybody can get behind as a neutral fan. The owner is trying to move the team away from a fan base that has been die-hard for this team. And all of a sudden, now they're going to possibly win the MLS Cup.
And it continues to pile more of a lot of fun in this offseason, not only for the United States as far as what are they doing as a national federation, but in the offseason for the MLS as well, because now you have a story of, does this owner kind of go back on his word? Does he follow through? Does he be really stubborn?
If they win the Cup, do they move?
I still think they move, because Anthony Precourt looks two-faced if he then goes back on his word. He looks like an idiot regardless, but if he goes back on his word and says, oh, now that we won MLS Cup, now I'm going to give Columbus fans what they want. You look like an idiot.
I still think that the problems that he talks about with Columbus will still exist whether they win the MLS Cup or not. But I do think that if you're talking about something you write on the whiteboard in your locker room saying like, hey, we need to win this, it's that your owner is going to move your team, and you got to give one last show to your fans.
Yeah, you are
guys,
doing
let's
this
get back
for
to
your fans.
the original question. I'm just going to have you guys make your picks real quick. Who's winning the MLS Cup, Jenny?
If Toronto doesn't sabotage themselves, it's got to be Toronto. They're the favorites. Jovinko is one of the best players to ever play in the league, and nobody can beat him when he's on his game.
Maybe the best. I agree with you. As long as Toronto survives leg number 1 against Columbus, doesn't concede a couple of goals, they know that they're going to hopefully get their best player back in the second leg, maybe even Altidore as well. As long as they can survive leg 1, they're winning MLS Cup.
All right, sounds good. Any surprise losses you guys see in the future?
Seattle could lose to Houston.
Yeah.
Seattle could lose to Houston.
I'd say a surprise loss could be Columbus really coming out strong on that first leg. And as you said, Toronto could concede a couple of goals, and now all of a sudden you're behind the 8 ball. That makes it tough. And as we said, Columbus has all the motivation.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, a lot of soccer to be played. Thank you very much. That's all the time we have for this block. But don't worry, Ellie will be joining me at the desk to discuss the worst comeback attempts in sports history.